You have to catch it live. So, Irissol Arce is a systems thinker and sustainability strategist with a reputation for driving business value with a human-centered lens. And that probably in that one sentence is like all the things I love about you, to be honest. I'm a systems thinking nerd and I'm a people and I love people. I think that everything that we drive is people at the center. She believes in doing what's right for people in the world around us, which is why she's dedicated years to solving some of the world's most pressing issues, including disparities in education, the digital divide, poverty, homelessness, inequity, and environmental stewardship. As Senior Director of Sustainability for Northwestern Mutual, Irissol combines over 20 years of experience in international business, technology, social innovation, and sustainability. It's crazy that she has 20 years of experience and she's just 25. So, I mean, starting this work at 5 o'clock, we got our own Greta over here. Currently, she leads sustainability for the built environment, where she develops solutions that balance environmental and societal goals related to the company's campus footprint while honoring long-term client and policy owner value. Irissol is a trusted executive coach focused on embodied leadership and design thinking, which is something I hope we talk a little bit about today, because I don't know a ton about embodied leadership. So that is Irissol. Join me in welcoming Irissol. Welcome. So as we kind of named, we are talking about the different definitions and dimensions of sustainability. Irissol is obviously going to weigh in from her perspective, but as you all are listening and thinking, there might be something that you came today with. So if you're online, I would encourage you to go ahead and jot those in the chat if there are specific questions that you'd like, and you all to start thinking about those as well. But we're going to talk about this environmental leadership, how environmental leadership drives success across the triple bottom line. And that was something that we did want to name. A conversation with another woman leader at some point, we were just talking about like how we think about bottom line. And I think that that's related to professional dimensions as well, not just the profit, but also thinking about the people and the environment. And it's often women that are at the forefront of that, because we often have that context to say like, we're not just successful if our company is hitting financial goals, right? A lot of people wouldn't say that, I think, or they might say it at the press conference, but it's not reflected in like the measures or the lack thereof measures, because there probably aren't a lot of measures. So I'm excited to jump into all of that. I think we did put a working definition for sustainability for today. We talked about the practice of meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. Across environmental, social, and economic dimensions. I always love when something's talking about dimensions, so I think that's it. We're gonna, Irissol, take us down the path of your understanding of this framing, how you align to this definition or not, and if there are things that you would add.
I think this is a really good working definition, and to Lauren's point earlier, like sustainability crosses so many areas. Like whatever, even when young people reach out to me and tell me that they're interested in sustainability, they're like, what career path should I take? And I'm like, what part of it do you want to do, right? Even Manpower Group actually issued a report a couple years ago, and they were talking about teal jobs and green jobs, and it actually really displays like a spectrum of jobs that exist across sustainability, everything from the scientists and engineers that really work on these efforts, but also the grant makers, the social impact drivers across the board, because it is a multidimensional effort. The other kind of pieces that I would add to that definition from kind of a corporate perspective, there's a lot of conversation, it's implied in that definition, but also is corporate governance and how it serves as a way to mitigate risk in an organization. I think that's really a kind of a big part of the discussion, especially currently, around how do we use it as a lever for governance, ethics, and really making sure that you're driving the business that way. And then kind of more of the woo-woo kind of way, way that I think about it as well is that it's really about building relationships with those around, building relationships and connections with the earth, with each other, and with ourselves. And I think that's kind of where it goes into the embodied leadership portion as well, where it's really about connection and groundedness to the people around us, the earth around us. And so I would kind of add that layer to that working definition.
Talk more about like so now we're doing like a meta situation, because I want you to ground your role and like your existence in this concept, because I think it's beautiful when people can have jobs that they like really genuinely believe in and care about, and I feel like you do. How do you like make that connection or like build that sustainability into you?
We talked a little bit about kind of like how I got here, and you talked about the importance of people being at the center. And I think that's where I've always really been motivated in all of the work that I've done. I've really been able to, I've been blessed with opportunities across all of the spectrums that Lauren mentioned earlier. But it's because I've always kind of sought after work that had impact on people, whether it was through philanthropy. Even when I was working in tech, it was STEM outreach. It wasn't necessarily, yes, I have an interest in technology, but I wasn't in technology because of technology. I was in technology and STEM work specifically because I knew that jobs in tech would help close wealth gaps, right? And so I've always looked at how can I work in these spaces, and I worked in the corporate sector most of my career, but like where does the conscience of the company live, right? And that's why I've been in philanthropy, been in D&I, been in sustainability. And so I think that's what got me here to the work that I'm doing today, is that social impact lens. And I think that's an important part of kind of what has gotten me here in terms of the type of work that I do specifically. So sustainability for the built environment, what does that even mean? So the work that I do is at Northwestern Mutual. We have a Milwaukee campus, Franklin campus, New York, and then we have a few jets, so our hang. So I'm looking at what is the environmental impact of all of these campuses? When we do construction projects, how does it harm or help the environment? When we are I'm trained now to be looking at like, how do we reduce packaging? Like, keep that plastic water bottle away from me, right? Like, frame, or like, don't put it in the frame. So I look across like the kind of the two areas that I think about when I think about the built environment is the green building side of things. So looking at how do we certify our buildings for better environmental outcomes. And so I'm working with consultants that look at the concrete that's used, the type of energy efficiency that you build into a building, all of the different pieces that go into the construction of a project. Right now, we have a renovation project happening at Northwestern Mutual. The building itself could have been demolished, but instead we made the decision to bring it down to its steel frame and build from there and really make it a reuse project. So there's that green building side of it, working with our energy manager to make sure that we understand what is the energy efficiency of the building, how can we improve it, how can we use technology to identify where there's peaks in energy or water loss because there's a leaky pipe, right? When you're working across campuses of our size, like one water leak can mean a good amount of water that's being wasted. So I'm looking at the buildings in terms of what is their environmental impact. We have, and it really is, our campus really is like a mini city, right? We have a restaurant, we have retail, we have essentially like a university space of learning for our employees and our field folks. So we have catering happening, events happening on campus. So I get to look at, again, the construction side of things, but also the operations, looking at how do we make sure to recycle more? How can we bring composting into our work? How can we divert waste from our landfill? How can we work to make sure that in the restaurants they're minimizing how much food waste they produce by, cutting as close as they can to a melon core, or thinking about creative ideas to put on the menu to be able to reuse things from the day before into the following day's menu, right? So looking kind of across all of those different areas in the operations side. And then there's the well-being side that really falls into that as well. When we think about the design of our buildings, for those of you who ever watched Office Space, I always think about the guy in the basement with a stapler that was not very happy, right? Like he didn't have daylight, he was in a dark space. The space around us really does contribute to how we feel and how we operate. And so I get to work with a really creative team around building design that they bring natural elements into the workplace, that we have museum quality artwork in our space that reflects the diversity of the community around us, that we have good air quality, that we, all of these things play into sustainability for the built environment. And that's what I get to do every day.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so how did you evolve? Because I'm assuming you know much more about what sustainability is and looks like. I think I'm doing a great job when I'm getting to the recycling bin, right? And then I like read things like only half of the garbage or half of the recyclables are actually recycled or things like that. So now I'm like, okay, that means I got to do twice as much of recycling because only half of it's going to get there. How do you think about how that grew, like your personal definition of sustainability and understanding it grew over time? And I'm also like listening as a leader, as somebody who has influence on a business and how it operates, like, if some of us are just, or some of us are, do feel like more like the people that are in the middle without the power to do these things, like, how do we get there? Or
Yeah.
what's the,
I think there's a few things in what you said.
Mhm.
So like the half of the recycling, right?
Right.
I think the thing is like there's a lot of education that we need as well
Mhm.
around it because sometimes things don't get recycled because we've contaminated the recycling, right? We've
Mhm.
poured, liquid in there or we put a package in there that had grease. And so there's all different things that make your best intention then not recyclable in that example.
Mhm. Mhm.
The other piece that you said, like, it is about, and I think we might get there too, but I think it is about the little acts that we can make on a
Mhm.
daily basis. And so I wouldn't, disregard
Yeah.
the small steps that we're making. It takes all of us doing a little bit at a time to make an impact. In terms of how my thinking has changed around the work, I think a lot of what I've done in the social impact space kind of is does feed into this work too. Like,
Mhm.
especially because I've done it in the corporate sector, right? It's
Yep.
like I need to tie the work to the business case. I need
Yep.
to
Yep.
bring people along with me. I need to make sure that my efforts, like I'm in it for, the environmental impact. I'm in it for, making sure that, when I was in philanthropy, making sure that kids have quality education.
Mhm.
But from a business perspective, I need to know how to translate
Yep.
that
Yep.
that work into how it has policy owner value, how it, drives our strategy forward, how it affects like our ability to attract talent. So I think a lot of that has remained consistent. And is there something that you wanted me to talk about specifically?
Well, I was just hearing it.
Yeah.
So what you said was that the small things do
They do.
matter more
Yeah.
than, and I think it's hard because it's harder to measure those and they feel like nice to do's. And we talked about that a little bit of like environment, what do you think?
Think globally, act locally.
Think globally, act locally, and really doing what's within our locus to push on those. Working at a company that I feel like does have more significant resources
Yeah.
than a lot of other places too. I do wonder if that's also we lean on places like that to dream, right? To understand what's possible.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you've brought that, like what make it real for me that doesn't have $1 billion company yet, probably won't, because that's just, not my style. But how does that change the way that you look at effective environmental like leadership?
I mean, if you think about like the things that even at a smaller scale, right? Like, yes, Northwestern
Mhm.
Mutual can do these things, but policy owner values at the core of everything that we do. Risk
Sure,
mitigation
sure.
is at the core of everything that we do. And so they're not going to, yes, we invest in things that because it's the right thing to do, but also because it has a return. So
Mhm.
thinking in the same
Mhm.
way, even with smaller organizations, like I've even found in some cases that recycling is cheaper than our landfill processor, right? So you might be saving money from that perspective. As our utility bills go up, right? Like,
Yep.
there's been a big push, and I'm blanking on the name of the organization. It's a local organization that connects people, residents to federal funds to help kind of bring more sustainability to their homes, to bring
Mhm.
energy prices down, to do all of those things. And we might get to this a little later too, but I think part of it is like so many kind of big system topics, whether it's finance or AI or whatever, there are so many areas, and then sustainability is one of them, that we make it so complicated for people. It's like the language in my space, we're talking about decarbonization and GRI and greenhouse gas emissions and SBTI. And like, I remember when I was talking to my mom about moving into this role,
Mhm.
and my mom thinks I'm a smart girl. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
She-
moms,
she
they're just
looked at me-
biased.
she- She looked at me and she kind of just like thought for a moment. She was like, that sounds like you need to be really smart. And it's just like, so it's like, I think part of it and part of the work that's happening now among people in sustainability is trying to make this work more accessible to people
Mhm.
and to deconstruct it in a way that
Yeah.
people feel connected and how they can be part of it. And I've seen how this works. Like, so in Pakistan is a good example where there's been like a huge solar boom,
Mhm.
and it was driven by the people
Mhm.
because they saw their energy prices going up. They
Mhm.
saw the electric grid wasn't as stable as it should be. So they started sharing on social media how to connect their solar panels to their home. And
Mhm.
so I think when we start to empower the public
Mhm.
around what sustainability means and the positive impact that it can have on their daily lives, on the realistic parts of like, can I pay my energy bill? I think that helps to start creating more change, and it makes people feel more empowered to make changes like that, but then also to start demanding more of the businesses that they patron as well, because they know what's possible and they know what they expect from
Sure.
the people that they buy from.
Sure.
And that demand alone then shifts how big businesses will operate because
Yep.
the demand is coming from the people that they're trying to sell to, right?
That is the systems,
Yeah.
like kind of implication and thinking.
Yep.
Okay, before we get into more of like, I want to talk more about the strategy integration piece. I was kind of like naturally leading there, but I want to figure out this last question because we talked about embodied leadership and connecting like those personal leadership practices to sustainability in the organization. Talk a little bit about that too. And this
Yeah.
is like our little aside and commercial encouragement to a lot of our women who might be thinking about what their side thing is, or might be thinking about what's after their 9 to 5, what's their 5 to 9.
Yeah.
But like getting into coaching and then kind of how you've connected your side job to
Yeah.
the work that you're in. Like talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the coaching side, for the most part, I work with a lot of women in coaching. And so it's more of a passion project. And like, I love to see women thrive and grow. The connection to, and kind of like what led me down the path of looking at embodied leadership specifically, does have kind of a strong tie to sustainability and kind of our connection to the environment. And I think in one of the stories that I had shared with you, I remember during the pandemic, and this was kind of when I was starting to think about transitioning into sustainability. And during the pandemic, I was watching a webinar, and it was a few tribal leaders that were sharing about kind of their perspective as to like why the pandemic was happening, how COVID came to be. And they described it so beautifully, and I won't do them justice, but they were talking about how when we disconnect from the earth, these are the types of things that start to happen. And they were talking about in indigenous practices about like bearing we need to connect our umbilical cord to the earth. And it really struck me that they were equating kind of what is happening internally and how it reflects kind of what's happening in the environment. And I think that's true for the work that we do and how we operate in any business or in our community or in our homes, that the more disconnected we are to the things around us, the less effective and less present that we're going to be. And so with embodied leadership, it really is about helping people to ground into their internal wisdom, their intuition, to be present in the moment, and to be able to process what they're feeling. Because if a leader cannot do that for themselves, how are they expected to do that for the people that they are leading, right? And so it from a work perspective, right? Like the coaching is an aside, but the actual work is not, right? If you think about even if you think about how you engage with other leaders or a manager who is, you know, really pressing all the buttons that you have, and it's really difficult to work for them, like what is going to get you through that? I think about an interview with Felicia Rashad that she had given, and she was talking about how she would raise her daughter just the way her mother raised her. Like she would do it 10 times over. And they said, what did your mom do that was so amazing that you would do again? And essentially what she was talking about was that her mother always made sure that she looked internally first to understand who she was before allowing the world around her to reflect on what they thought she was. And so that is embodied leadership. That is having a knowing inside of you, having a peace within you that you know who you are, you know your worth, and regardless of what someone else is telling you, I don't receive that, right? And it's being able to fortify yourself internally enough to be able to kind of repel that. And so embodied leadership really is about that. And that same type of connection then can be applied to when you are more present in yourself and when you feel more at peace with yourself, you are more inclined to be connected to the things around you, right? Like thinking about how often are we eating a meal and when do we pause to think about the field workers who harvested the crops, or the truck driver who transported the food to the grocery store, or for the person who prepared your meal, right? Like we are so disconnected from our food chain. We're so, or while you have this meal in front of you, you're scrolling through TikTok, or you are listening to a podcast, or trying to get work done. Like we are perpetually disconnected. And so it just made me think back to what those tribal leaders were talking about, was that if we are not connected to ourselves, if we are not rooted and grounded, there's no way that we can show up with presence for the world around us.
Yeah. That's a lot. My mind is like.
My mind is. So this is I would say a joy statement, a reflection on Lauren, a reflection on PD, but what you said just made me think about just how we're treating humans nowadays. And if we can't see ourselves and others, I mean, I think it's the fact that we don't see ourselves and others that we can allow and watch things to happen and not care, right? Because even before you connect to the earth, it's like, do you see the human sitting next to you, or that other person, whatever titles, labels, whatever you put around it, they are human too and want the same things for themselves. But that was so profound.
Yeah. You're making me think about how we're also like systemically desensitized, and like how we often, and I would even go as far as to say we celebrate disconnection, right? Like in the way, and we talk about that in PD a lot we do an annual event, right, where we celebrate women leaders, and we part of why that event is so special and so important is because we get to set the parameters on why we're selecting the people that we're selecting to celebrate, and we set the parameters on a triple bottom line, right? And but you also run into issues because sometimes the people that you select who are doing some of the most important work might not naturally draw the most resources. And I think a lot of organizations struggle with that, right? Or like, and so we have to think differently, and we're sitting in a foundation, you know, we all of the things, right? That where we are, whether we know it or not, we are sometimes just like keeping this disconnection going because success is equated with some of the things that come from that disconnection versus, and so it's like we become what we celebrate, which is why it's like you always have to be, I'm trying to work on being more specific when I say congratulations to someone, right? Like not just congratulations, it can be taken as just generally, you could be congratulating them for just being in a leadership role. But no, maybe I want to congratulate you for the intention that you've had and the priorities that you have that you're carrying into this. And, you know, like it's just like things can be misinterpreted and then celebrating the wrong things.
Well, what's funny about like the incentivizing disconnection, it's very true. And again, this is not my Northwestern Mutual path.
This is where we pause the recording, right? I was waiting for us.
But I think what's funny is that, and we think about like professional dimensions and women and kind of the role the unique kind of role that we can play and all of those things. And if you kind of follow the work of like feminine wisdom and really like the kind of the main points around feminine wisdom is that we understand that our power is so great that all we have to do is surrender, and we know that things will work out the way that they're intended to work out. And so like we oftentimes are kind of allowing, you know, institutions, systems, whatever, to make us feel as though we have to give up ourselves, that we have to work harder, that it has to be hard. That it has
Yeah.
to be hard because we have to
Yeah.
earn it.
Yeah.
If it's not hard, then we haven't earned it, right? But from like a feminine wisdom perspective, like it's the opposite of that. Like we attract, if we truly believe in the universe, God, whatever it is that you believe in, you know that you already are worthy, that you don't have to work more, make things harder for things to work out. And I think that's such a leap
Yeah.
of faith
Mhm.
too. And you've done it in
Yeah.
your leadership too, where it's like all of the things have said you need to operate in
Yeah,
this way
that's
or
right.
you will be penalized. And
Mhm.
you're like, nope, I believe that this is the right way forward. This feels intuitively right to me. I know
Mhm.
all the things inside of me are telling me, plus all of like the data you've collected and all the
Yeah.
people you've
Yeah.
connected with.
Mhm.
And you know that this is the right direction and you found success with it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we're
Mhm.
told or made to believe that we have to
Mhm.
give in or, not resist
Yeah.
when the opposite is true.
That's right. That's right. I love that. Something I hope for professional dimensions to continue to be is a place for us to like take those risks that feel like they're outside of what might typically be celebrated. Like we talk about it as like that safety net.
Yeah.
Like I always use that example of like the tightrope and the safety net, right? Like a tightrope in a circus. If you're going across it slowly and carefully, you're likely to fall,
Yeah.
right? But if you speed across it and with confidence,
Yeah.
you won't. But also having a safety net makes you move a little bit differently,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
you know you're not dead if you fall, right? And like that's what I feel like PD needs to be for folks that have not have the privilege. Maybe they're new,
Yeah.
maybe they're new, their parents weren't connected in that way, right? But you can join an organization and you can work hard and you can build that community that allows you, and that's what I would put it back on. Like it's my risk, but it's also like knowing that I have the community so that failure is not taking up space. And it's like, we're going because I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 beds to sleep on if something happens, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I appreciate that whole conversation. As we pivot into anything left kind of in this topic of like just disconnection, your practice, connection, leading into our sphere to be a little bit more sustainable individually as we pivot then into like what this actually looks like in our organizational strategy.
I'm trying to think, was there anything
I
that
saw a Bad Bunny story on here that,
Yeah,
you know,
Friday
Super
Wedding
Bowl.
Lights, yeah. That just goes to like the things that we miss when we aren't connected.
Yeah, things, right.
And so
Yeah.
he gave this, so if I don't know if everybody or no one knows who Bad Bunny is, but a singer.
It's still Hispanic Heritage Month, I think.
Hispanic
This is
Heritage Month.
this is our
It's
aside.
gonna be at the halftime performance coming up. But he's this huge, huge performer, and he was saying that he was kind of leaving the stage, and he made eye contact with someone, and they threw him a kiss. And then as he threw them a kiss, they picked up their phone and missed the kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And so he talks about how so many times in our lives because we are not connected and present in the moment, that we miss like these amazing good things that are happening around us.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
another call out from Bad Bunny to
I
stay
love
connected.
that. Thank you, Bad Bunny. This is brought to you by Bad Bunny and NFL. Thank you so much. Okay, awesome. Well, let's pivot then into, because like also what I love about Irissol is like we would talk a lot. If it's not clear already, I have lots of ideas and visions, and I feel like Irissol would come and talk to me about, okay, well, what are you really trying to get done? And this is how you make it appealing, because people got to catch up, right? And we got to make it, you talked about that in your earlier remarks, like tangible. It has to have an appeal to be sustainable, and people have to have access to it and be able to know how to do it. How can sustainability be embedded into organizational strategy, not just as a CSR initiative, but as a driver of business value across people, planet?
I think some of the trends that we've seen, so reporting has been kind of a big driver for businesses to really get into sustainability, kind of meeting regulatory compliance. Like this has kind of been one of the drivers. Kind of the more recent trend that we found is that some companies, whether there is regulation or not, are still doing sustainability work, because as they've collected data for reporting, they're finding that that data is actually really helpful to them as a business to help drive business success. And so I think that's one of the ways that we can really use data to the data around sustainability to help leaders understand that this is could and should be part of like a core business imperative. The other so again, really, I think another thing is to the more that we understand our businesses, the better that we can then connect into those business strategies. So I think, you know, for someone wanting to make impact in this space, like know your business really well. When I was doing philanthropy for Northwestern Mutual, I had to recognize that like there was a whole mission behind the organization that supported the foundation's work, but that was not the core mission of the company, right? I needed to understand what is the core business mission of the company and how does the work that I'm doing support that. So really getting good at understanding the core business value, understanding where leaders are at in the business as well, so that you understand what's important to them. Whether it's a business imperative that's important to them or what's happening in their personal lives that makes them more inclined to want to commit to these efforts. Having those kind of that understanding and those partnerships is helpful to make sure that leadership then has buy-in in the work. Having leadership buy-in is everything, and even like where sustainability lives within the organization is actually very important too. Whether it's philanthropy or sustainability, I always kind of want to find out where these roles live in the organization, because I think it's really indicative of like what the company thinks about these things, right? The value that they have in them. And so for us at Northwestern Mutual, like I think we're really fortunate that we plan for the long term, and the commitment that we make to our clients is that it is about a generational compact, that the definition that you had of sustainability in many ways is very reflective of the mission of the organization, to make sure that our policy owners over time and over generations feel secure and safe, right? So there is an ability that we have to think long-term that maybe some publicly held companies don't have, right? They're looking at like, how can you make the most immediate impact on these statements for this quarter? Whereas we're thinking about like long-term impact. So I think having a company align with you and leadership that aligns with you helps to drive that effort. We're also a very people-centric, relationship-centric business. And so that also is kind of informs the way that we approach work like this. Sustainability and social impact lives across our organization. So it's not owned by one specific department in our company. There are multiple folks across the organization that contribute to the work, which I think helps with collective impact, right? And then also buy-in from that perspective too, because then there are many people in the organization who have contributed to the work and who care about the work. So the more that you can do to really make sure that the work lives across instead of just in one department, I think can help move the work along as well.
I love that. Can you share, this isn't really on the on the sheet, but I'm curious about like specific data points that you, like we talked about this being less of a nice to do, but like we're moving, maybe there's a little bit of a trajectory into actually like, plus you hard facts or hard data that we're actually like collecting to know if an organization is sustainable or building towards that. What are some of those metrics that people should be looking at or that we could be looking at in our own companies or asking about to know if our org is on the right track or in the right direction?
So do you mean like if you want to find out like how another company is doing?
Well, I think both. I think it's like, I think about like women's initiative and how like there was a big deal when the NASDAQ just started having people measure how many women are on boards. And in order to be a part of the organization, at least 50, beyond 50%. Or when we think about or when we think about supplier diversity, like a metric that not everybody will measure, but like we could start measuring, even here at PD, we could measure how much of our revenue is spent on like diverse or women businesses, right? Like things that might not be standard metrics, but like get at those triple bottom line. Like,
so in terms of data broadly, like on a global perspective, like you want to know like if we're moving in the right direction, right? Are we meeting our targets as like our global targets? We are not, and that's a trend to kind of watch for, is like where are we with like meeting what we need to do to keep climate change
Mhm.
moving
Sure.
towards the right direction. So that's kind of a big picture. In terms of like identifying companies that are doing the right thing, there is a greater push for disclosure and
Mhm.
transparency. So
Okay.
you could always look for, and I encourage you to look for Northwestern Mutual's sustainability and impact report that shares kind of across the organization what we're doing. So I think that's a good indicator, right? Like where is the company in their journey with their willingness to disclose and to have some transparency, more at the localized level of like, what could we be looking for? Like focus on energy, locally can do like an audit of your building to see like how effective your energy efficiency is. And so that can kind of help you start to think about like, whoa, where are the areas that we should work on. Depending on the size of your property, the city of Milwaukee, as part of their climate and equity plan, actually instituted a new ordinance that, so the companies of our buildings of our size have to start reporting on energy consumption. And so you can, with that, you can see also kind of where it's a benchmarking kind of tool. And so you can kind of see like how well you're doing. So there are kind of just certain platforms that you could connect into to assess your performance. So those are a couple.
That's
of things
great.
I can think
And I
of.
love the idea because I think we look to NM as a leader in a lot of regards. And so I think looking even at your report
Yeah.
and saying like,
Yeah.
I wonder what of these like
Yeah.
reflect,
Yeah.
even in the small organizations
Yeah.
that has a suite in a building, right?
Yeah.
Like
And-
well, how we can be, or even asking our people.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that we do as a matter of practice is to do a materiality assessment too.
Okay.
So the way that we do sustainability is not necessarily the way PD should
Sure.
do sustainability,
Right.
not even,
Yeah.
not necessarily even just
Yes.
because of the
Mhm.
scale. But it's also because of what is important to your business and what is material to your business, right? So there are certain things that make sense for us as from an insurance perspective or financial institution, that wouldn't make sense for PD as an organization. So materiality and understanding like what of all of the categories that we could be looking at in sustainability, which of them make most sense for your company to be doing work around, right? It's like, a manufacturing company is going to have very different targets than a clothing apparel company than any of the other companies that we can think of.
Cool. I'm gonna ask like one more question because we're like at time, but I wanted to pause and see if there were other questions that you all had, or if there were things that you came today maybe wanting to understand more about and then take advantage of each. So yeah.
Building on your question just now, like looking at national trends and what our federal government is saying is important. What do you think? Like, how are the directives from the federal government impacting? Maybe not Northwestern Mutual specifically, because it sounds like it's baked into the central system of what you all are doing, but how other corporations are reacting to sustainability initiatives or expectations or hopes.
Yeah, I mean,
in the US.
Okay, so as to just repeat the question, looking at like federal regulations and how we are nationally showing up to the sustainability space, I think we wanted like a more of a reflection on on in that space. Is that? Yep, hard to hear. Got it.
Okay. Yeah, so even us, the regulatory environment affects us as an organization and something that we're always kind of monitoring for and adjusting to. There has been concern by some, I get calls all the time from people in the sustainability space, like, what are you doing? Even some people asking, like, should I even stay in this space anymore, right? Like there is concern by some. I would say that despite what changes are happening at the federal level, there still is what I'm seeing is a lot of local push for change too. So there's, for example, a California policy that will affect us as an organization, and we're building towards to meet that regulation, right? New York has different policies for their building and on decarbonizing buildings over time. As I mentioned, the city of Milwaukee is introducing this benchmarking ordinance as a way to kind of assess where buildings are at the moment. And I would likely assume that at some point they might want to take that benchmarking data and set targets as well, right? So, but I would say that even despite what might be happening at the federal level, there is a localized push that is putting pressure on businesses. There's a pressure from consumers to continue doing the work. As I mentioned earlier, some of the data that they're collecting is proving valuable to them as an organization, so it supports their bottom line. So, you know, I would just say that the work is still continuing. It's just continuing through different streams. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions? Yeah.
I know enough to be very dangerous about this. We're pushing AI so much at the very cost as a tool, but this is the part I know nothing about. I know that there's sustainability impacts to the explosive use of AI. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, there's like I think it's like a tripling of like the energy demand that's needed to have the data centers that provide you with your AI usage, right? So for every AI prompt, it's like, I think I don't know how many bottles of water that's needed to push that prompt to the data center to be processed. And then when you say thank you and it responds to you and all of these things, right? So there is an environmental impact. Data centers in particular are hugely like energy intensive, water intensive. You'll notice that a lot of the companies that are investing in data centers, they do have strong sustainability efforts as a way to kind of offset what they're doing. So there is, and I think about that a lot too. It like from a technology advancement perspective, like AI has the potential to create so many opportunities within the sustainability space to be able to assess, you know, data differently to get us to better outcomes, to provide more predictive analytics that gets us to better solutions. Like it can provide so much good, but there is an environmental impact and there's also a social impact to that as well, right? Like what is it doing to, I think AI is being used, like a big part of it is like companionship and therapy are two major things, right? So how does that impact how we interact with each other, who we go to for counsel? Is that tool even appropriate to provide that counsel? Are they providing the right counsel? What are the ethics behind that? So yeah, there's a social and sustainability impact to it. So I would say that my hope is that that the governance is put in place in the way that it needs to, and the ethics are put in place that it needs to help with the social side of things. And what I'm also seeing from a positive perspective in sustainability and climate action is that technology is also enabling us to create tools that help decarbonize, that help kind of reduce. So I think some people are hoping that technology will help advance like how we can improve the environment, like at more rapid paces. So I don't know if that's where you wanted to go with it, but that's what comes to mind. Yeah.
Maybe you answered this a little bit, but are there more sustainable ways? There's probably always more sustainable ways to do things generally, but like is resulting to like water as a coolant like the only like way, or are there other ways that people have found ways to utilize AI that is less
intensive?
Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
know enough.
yeah,
on
okay.
that side.
I just wonder, usually there's cost, like when things, we're always late to getting the things, right? So this stuff has been going on long before we knew about it, right? As far as like AI and different models, but like,
What I have
yeah.
seen is that like they're trying to make data centers more efficient,
Mhm.
right? So some people are, and some people actually will intentionally so you can certify a data center as well in the same way that you can get like a green certification to a building, you can get
Okay.
a certification to a data center as well to show like, you know, that it's, you know, it needs less cooling, it needs, you know, it's more energy efficient. So there are some investments that are specific to like making the data center experience more efficient and less harmful. There's I'm trying to think, there are other things that are being done to try to make the process like
Right.
yeah.
You know, one data center uses more than all the households.
Yeah.
And all the what you said?
Households.
Households, wow.
And it can affect energy prices then too. So if we think about like the, you know, just the regular Joe that, you know, is their energy prices are going up to serve the demand that's being placed on it by these large corporations building these data centers.
Well, and I'm also concerned the HR person, so picking up on
Yes,
people coming
yes,
earlier
yeah.
in the same year, you know, it's interesting because these tools and technological advances help us do the things that we know how to do. So I
Yeah.
even think of myself as using it, it's like, oh, I don't have to think that hard, I can just plop it in,
Yeah,
it'll be.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm concerned in the future generation about critical thinking. Are they going to know how to do it? You
Yeah,
know, how do
yeah.
are they gonna be able to determine?
So I think I think about this a lot too, Sarah, cause I'm actually part of the people function and,
Mhm.
but from like an HR perspective, I think about it in a few different ways, like one, in terms of what you're getting at,
Mhm.
I've seen this in universities too, where some professors are like, you're not allowed to use AI. And that's their rule. Whether students follow that, I don't know. But then there are other professors that are like, I'm gonna assume that you're gonna use AI.
Right.
Which means I'm going to prompt you differently, which means my expectations for you are going to be higher. You know, so there are, and so I think about it from an HR perspective, like what are businesses doing to mature or make the use of AI more sophisticated so that they are kind of almost upskilling their talent when they use it, right? I also worry about like what type of digital divide that it could create among talent as well. Just like we've seen with any other technology, this is like an even more intense type of technology. So what is that going to do from a digital divide and understanding, right? So I mean, even when we were preparing for
Yeah.
this, if I can reveal this,
Yeah,
like
no,
Laura
yeah,
gave,
literally.
she sent out the questions to me and I'm like, were you advising with ChatGPT? And she's like, absolutely. But it
Yeah.
was a really good,
Yeah.
you could tell she had an understanding of like prompt engineering
Yep.
and she understood how to use it. And so I think about someone like Lauren competing with someone that has no, you know, idea about how to move the mouse around, let alone how to like, you know, advance AI. Exactly, exactly. So I think about like, what is the role of business on making sure that they're preparing their folks for that? The other piece from more of a culture perspective that I think about too is, what does it do to you as a leader or even as a colleague? If, because there could be a time and place where instead of leading people, we're leading agents, right? AI agents. And so what does that do?
That's right.
How does that change your empathy, for example, right? Like if I've just been working with AI agents all day long and all I have to do is like prompt them, tell them what to do, all these things. Like I don't have to be nice to them. I don't have to worry about what's happening in their home. I don't have to. So like, could that start deteriorating like our own ability to socialize with each other or to show up as leaders in the way that we need to? So I think there are a lot of people that are thinking through a lot of this stuff and I'm just hopeful. And I think this is one of the things we talked about a lot too, is like the need for hope in all of this. That it is one person at a time, it is one act at a time. And that I still do think there's more good than bad in people, in like our advancements, all the things. So I do have hope. Yeah.
Thank you. Any final thoughts or questions? I know I'm struggling with, I'm struggling with like that divide of using or not using.
Yeah.
Cause like, it's like, there's no way you don't use like,
Yeah.
you reject technology. It's the same thing that's gonna happen. It's like,
Illiterate.
you know, yeah. And we were having these questions. It's a shout out to Tech Month, Nadia, leading Tech Month. October is Tech Month, where we have a tech hub here in Milwaukee.
Yeah, she's
That's
she
really
should be
powerful, right?
speaking
She's
of it.
yeah, she should speak to this. And we've talked about this. She came in like last year and she was saying like, it's not cute to go to people and say like, oh, I can't read, so I don't know what any of that says. I can't read. Like, you know, in the same way that like people will be like, oh, I don't get on the phone. There, she was drawing like that comparison. I butchered that, but drawing that comparison of like, yeah, we can't say that.
Yeah.
Like, you have to know how to use this
That's
technology.
That's why I do feel like, okay, if we know that AI advancements are happening. We also know its impact to the environment and we know its impact to people or culture. So while these technologies are being deployed, there need to be people that are investing in the technology that makes that more efficient.
Yeah.
That
Right.
in fact invest in the people to upskill them. So there needs to be this whole, and we talked about systems change, right? This is a huge systems change that needs to happen. And it needs to come at all different angles to to reduce harm,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. let us, we had one little, it's 1 o'clock, so I know if y'all got a dip, thank you for being here. If you all have to dip, thank you for being here. Close us out, maybe just framing up how do we phrase it? Like inspiration?
Oh, yeah.
I did include the final video from Jane
Yeah.
as a reflection piece, but any final thoughts there of like, we've gone to doom and gloom here, but bring us back out with what keeps you motivated and maybe framing up what Jane had to say in her
Yeah.
final days.
Yeah, so Lauren's referring to Jane Goodall, and for many of you may know that she passed away recently. And she was a beacon of hope in this space. And I think she did an interview. And I don't know, did you say you're gonna?
Yeah, I do have. Yeah, I do.
So she did an interview before she passed, obviously. But it would only be released after she passed. So she was able to say, all the things that she needed to say. The clip that Lauren is going to share is simply kind of her final message. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, like it's filled with hope. And that I think, that one person at a time, each of us having a purpose, and she speaks to this. And I hope that like all of you find kind of what purpose you have in all of this, and that you're able to kind of move forward and execute on it. But I will leave it to Jane as a point of inspiration.
In the place where I am now, I look back over my life. I look back at the world I've left behind. What message do I want to leave? I want to make sure that you all understand that each and every one of you has a role to play. You may not know it, you may not find it, but your life matters, and you are here for a reason. And I just hope that that reason will become apparent as you live through your life. I want you to know that whether or not you find that role that you're supposed to play, your life does matter, and that every single day you live, you make a difference in the world, and you get to choose the difference that you make. I want you to understand that we are part of the natural world, and even today, where the planet is dark, there still is hope. Don't lose hope. If you lose hope, you become apathetic and do nothing. And if you want to save what is still beautiful in this world, if you want to save the planet for the future generations, your grandchildren, their grandchildren, then think about the actions you take each day, because multiplied 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000 times, even small actions will make for great change. I just hope that you understand that this life on planet Earth isn't the end. I believe, and now I know, that there is life beyond death, that consciousness survives. I can't tell you from where I am secrets that are not mine to share. I can't tell you what you will find when you leave planet Earth. But I want you to know that your life on planet Earth will make some difference in the kind of life that you find after you die. Above all, I want you to think about the fact that we are part, when we're on planet Earth, we are part of Mother Nature. We depend on Mother Nature for clean air, for water, for food, for clothing, for everything. And as we destroy one ecosystem after another, as we create worse climate change, worse loss of diversity, we have to do everything in our power to make the world a better place for the children alive today and for those that will follow. You have it in your power to make a difference. Don't give up. There is a future for you. Do your best while you're still on this beautiful planet Earth that I look down upon from where I am now. God bless you all.